Lord invites us to come before Him. Today, let's acknowledge that the Lord has invited us to this place. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for inviting us to come before you, to sit in your presence, to stand in your presence, to sing, to listen. And we pray, Lord, that in this hour, in this place, that your sweet Holy Spirit will flow. Oh God, we ask and pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Please remain standing for the first song.
Brother Walls, there's a remote that will turn the camera on. You put on the camera. It's over on the piano, I believe. Thank you.
Let's turn to page 640. Page 640. Does anyone have a word?
Mr. Floyd and my youngest son both had surgery this week on the same day at the same place, back to back. And also next week, my oldest son is going to be having a heart procedure, so I appreciate prayers for Justin. But I have felt the Lord's presence all week because I thought there's no way I'm going to make it through this day with these two boys. But God was good, both surgeries were good, and I just praise Him.
We didn't put it on the same day. Lord showed up. I was not expecting him to be. But the Lord is blessing. Thank you for that.
I was going to say, he was crusty, Ruby.
Anybody else?
I saw one of student this week that just said, God, you follow Jesus' most.
This week, the fact that there'll be some fantastic fireworks shows around the area. It's not about fireworks. Fireworks just remind us of how God blessed us to live in a country like the United States. We're not perfect by a long shot. But when we get outside the United States, which we have for a number of years, to realize what we have in the United States. When Mary and I were, and the kids were returning home from Venezuela, we happened to get on the national airline in Venezuela, the offset of that particular time. And generally, it's always full. This particular time, when we're coming back, it was relatively empty. We had our choice of where we wanted to sit. But there was a gentleman, an older gentleman, that was sitting across the aisle from us. And it was not difficult to pay attention to. All the way flying from Caracas to Miami. He looked very handsome. And as we were coming close to the United States, decided to converse with him. And here's someone that was really from Cuba. Back in the early 60s, he sent his whole family out of Cuba to the United States. To be free. Unfortunately, he had not been able to get out in time. So for the next 25 plus years, he was stuck in Cuba. His family, his kids, his wife, in the United States. These are the days in which you could not communicate, you could not go back and forth. In fact, that's what he was in Venezuela, because he couldn't fly directly to the United States. When he was finally given permission to leave, he had to go to another country, and he had to go to Venezuela and fly to the United States. As we got closer to the United States, I paid attention to him and started crying. And not only that, he was going to finally experience freedom. We did things like the great 4th of July for us is barbecue and hot dogs and firecrackers and such. And for many people in this world, what transpired over 200 years ago today, please, this 4th of July, give thanks to our sovereign God that we had people who were willing to sacrifice, and people who were willing to sacrifice through the centuries. Not only to gain our freedom, but to maintain our freedom. And we make sure that we give thanks to God for His presence in our lives. We need to take another walk. Yes. Ready to volunteers, youngsters. Happy birthday, come on out. The children.
so wrong. It went wrong. I know I'm feeling sorry for me. There's a lot of self-pity going on. Tomorrow I will be okay. The dawn will bring a bright new day. I'm sure by then I'll be fine. For today I really need a friend. I know that you understand. Would you hold me while I cry? I take a lot of your time when I should be strong. I should be standing by now, but it's you I'm leaning on. You've always kept me safe from harm, like a child in your arms. You cradled me through hardships, faced in life. Oh, it's just one of those days. I've been faulted in every way. Would you hold me while I cry? I try to be strong, but if anyone can fall apart, I fall apart. I run back to you again, and you heal my broken heart. You have truly been a friend, reaching out to lend a hand, Lord, when you could have passed me by. I'm asking for your strength today, lift my spirit, Lord, I pray. Would you just hold me while I cry? I take a lot of your time, when I should be strong. I should be standing by now, but it's you I'm leaning on. You've always kept me safe from harm, like a child in your arms. You cradled me through hardships, faced in life. Lord, it's just one of those days. I've been faulted in every way. Would you hold me while I cry? You've always kept me safe from harm, like a child in your arms. You cradled me through hardships, faced in life. Lord, it's just one of those days. I've been caught in every way. Would you hold me while I cry?
So we are very much aware that the first hurricane of the season is already in process down coming into the Caribbean. Now, we're a long ways away from the Caribbean, but we have family, we have friends, extended family. Who would be the hurricane down for the fire? So when we think of hurricanes, which could be a cat killer, and we think the United States and we think other places, let's pray for all those who are in the path of this storm. Voice your prayer to God, which is in your heart. This congregation. How many years have you been through? Which little things? We go through situations that we don't have answers to. We get to the Lord reminds us that fear is in you. You consider them fit. Lord, we pray that we'll be severe. Yes. Families that are grieving. Family work and the process of saving lives. Those who are facing surgery this week. Others who are really respite. Lord, yes, you know each of them will forward bless them. those situations. We would ask, oh God, to come down and access these individuals and these families. We pray, Lord, for the millions of people that over the coming days will anxiously look to the skies and anticipate that which is coming their way. We will pray, Lord, that we live in the Lord as they prepare these ready. And those who will come behind, try to bring us back. We pray, O Lord, for those of our community, of our congregation who are traveling today and over these days. We ask for traveling mercies, O God, that you protect them not only to their destination, but also that they return home safe and sound. We thank you, O Lord, for our country. Lord, we acknowledge that our country is not perfect. Yet, Lord, there is something special about it. One of those things that has made it so special for these centuries since that day of independence declaration has been that we have come to you, not only in times of trouble, but in times of grace. I pray, O Lord, that today we as a country will look to you in so many different ways. Lord, we will continue in this service today. Lord, you will bless us. You will be with us this week. In the name of Christ, we pray. Amen. Amen. I'll ask you to be seated, and I will ask the ushers to come forward. This will be our regular. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Let's begin when you're trying to make a decision. I'm going to ask you, and so you'll know it's been 14, and if not, you get better. I'm going to ask you to stand, and we're going to greet one another as a family. But we're also going to sing this as we begin. 3:14, family of God. I don't know about you, I'm glad to be part of the family of God. I like to go to family reunions for the most part. For the most part. Then, unfortunately, sometimes when you go to family reunions, it's usually for a funeral. And when you're the preacher of the family, guess who gets to do funerals? Yes. Today, we're going to be zeroing in on Psalm 23. We're going to have to do something besides the 23rd Psalm. We're going to go to the Gospel of Mark. Mark, the 7th chapter. We're going to begin with verse 31 and go down to the end of the chapter. Mark 7, beginning with verse 30. Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon, down to the Sea of Galilee, and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged him to place his hand on the man. After he took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, Ephphatha, which means, be open. At this, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. And Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they say. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute to speak. Heavenly Father, open our ears. May we open our mouths. genuine. In the early 20th century, there was a young man who was seeking a job. Desperately, he needed a job. And he saw an advertisement in a paper for a business who was needing a Morse code operator. Now, for some of you who are too young to remember the telegraph, that's where they would go. Preceded the telephone. So he saw this advertisement and he went to the business. It was a large business. And he went into a room and there were already people there. He's thinking, oh my, one job. And I'm not here early. They even interviewed me. There was a sign at the door into that room that said that gave instructions to take a seat and to wait until they were summoned in to the interview. Other candidates. He sat down. He did like the 8 other gentlemen there, and sort of looking at one another and tapping their feet a little bit. You know, were they going to come and ask us to come in? After about 2 or 3 minutes, this young man that had just got there got up and he went to the door and he opened the door and went in. And they're just going, how impertinent of him. He wasn't invited to come in, but he just got up and went into the room. It wasn't long after that, here comes the young man once again, and with him the owner of the business had said to the rest of them there, you don't need to be staying around. The job is filled. And they're going, whoa, wait a minute. We were here a long time before him. How in the world could you give him the job? That's not fair. That little phrase has been around a long time. That's not fair. We didn't even get a chance to interview. The employer said the whole time that you have been sitting here, that telegraph key has been taking out a message. If you hear this message, come to the door and the job is here. You didn't hear the message. You didn't understand the message. He did. And he gets the job. On a different note, later in the 20th century, there was a young lady by the name of Marcy Thompson who had been touring the United States, warning teenagers about the dangers of hitchhiking. Marcy looked like a normal teenager, except she had a brace on her leg that caused her to walk with an limp. Her right arm was paralyzed, that hung there by her side slack. Marcy did not always have these handicaps, but she was learning to deal with them. You see, a couple of years before, after a fight with her parents, she decided to run away from home. And although she had been taught all her life about the dangers of hitchhiking, she ignored that advice. Went to the highway and began to come alive. She got her right on the right. The man was being raped, beaten, robbed, and left for dead. But she didn't. But she was left with that bad night that paralyzed her. And now she was going around the United States to people her own age, a little bit younger, about the dangers of hitchhiking. And she could say to her peers, don't hitchhike. Look at me. This is what can happen. could say, I've been cautioned my whole life, but I didn't listen. The warning fell on deaf ears. And I let them be alone. The terrible thing that happened to Marcy Thompson is that we saw the Bible of the dangers that lurk all around us if we fail to pay attention to good advice. We're exposed to important lessons for living. We hear great truths. We're taught significant principles, but oftentimes those lessons do not become a part of us. I remember that way when I was a youth minister, taking them to a weekend retreat. And talking and ministering to these youth, and I remember very clearly some of you saying, why do we need to listen to you old people? Take me for a man. I was just thinking, goodness gracious. Why do we need to listen? Let us make our own mistakes. Oh, guess what? Each of us here, when we came through our teenage years, we were probably saying something very similar. Why do we need to make our own mistakes? Why can't we not learn from others? I remember sitting up there and talking with them very truthfully. Yeah, you're going to make your own mistakes. That is part of growing up, but why don't you learn from others? We're exposed to these things, and in our text today, we find one of the figurative reasons for this because often our advice falls on deaf ears. Sometimes figuratively, sometimes literally. After being healed, the man of the story was not only able to hear perfectly, but he spoke clearly. And there's a principle here that we should remember that in order to speak clearly, we must first be able to hear. When we fail to listen to guidance and direction, then we are at the mercy of the latest gossip, the latest hysteria, or too personal whim. When we jump on the bandwagons without any regard for principles, or run from fad to fad without concern for the purposes of God, when we are disloyal in our personal relationship, or close our minds to the teachings of God, when we say, Lord, Lord, but do not do the will of our Father in heaven, then no question about it. That's dangerous and it's destructive. In fact, the Apostle Paul put it this way in the first two verses of Romans chapter 12, which is one of the mouthpiece chapters of Scripture. Listen to those first two verses. Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is. His good, pleasing, and perfect will. In other words, don't fail to listen, but rather commit your life, all that you are and all that you have, to God and His truth. J.B. Phillips put the beginning of this in his own translation this way: don't let the world squeeze you into its mold. Rather, let God remold your minds from within so that you may prove in practice that the plan of God for you is good. This past week, if you watch it, if you're really interested in the NBA, they crowned a champion. And as one of my former students who now lives in Boston attested in a Facebook post, it's difficult being a Pacer fan, which grew up in Indy, and to live in Boston because they're the ones that knocked the Pacers out. The Celtics ended up winning it all. If you understand, they're one of the winningest franchises in that particular league. I take you back many years to when Fred Auerbach was the coach of that team. One day at practice, the players, they got a little bit sloppy, careless. They were passing the ball in all sorts of fancy ways and doing fancy spin passes. And they kept on missing those passes and dropping the ball. After 4 straight times down the court, someone missed another play. And Coach Auerbach blew his whistle. You have to understand, the coach was upset and blows their whistle. You can hear them to the next count. He blew his whistle, he called the players together. He said, "Give me the ball." He got the ball, and his center at that particular time was Bill Russell, one of the greats of the game. He took that ball and went boom to Bill Russell. Bill ball. He said, "You see that? A good pass is a pass that's caught. No matter how great a pass that is thrown, if no one catches it, it's not worth anything. No matter how great a lesson may be that is taught, or no matter how great a sermon that is preached, if no one catches it, it's worthless. It will all be in trouble. The best tribute that we can pay to our parents, to our teachers, to our predecessors, is to heed the time-honored values that have kept our society strong, and giving people the determination to stand firm against anything that seeks to corrupt. The Reverend Dr. Ward Williams was a student early in his life at Union Seminary in New York. At that time, a very good, very prestigious seminary. And he had the opportunity while he was taking his coursework there to work part-time across the street at another great institution, the Riverside Church. This is one of the most outstanding churches, not only in New York City, but in the 20th century in our country. It's had a whole series of outstanding preachers and teachers who've been part of this program. Now, during the time that Dr. Ward, not that one doctor, while he was working there, his responsibility was as a minister/teacher to single people between the ages of 40 and 65. He not only was their teacher, he was their minister, he was their confidant. He had an opportunity to counsel a woman there who was at that point in her 60s. And she really just played unloaded on him one day. She began to spill to him some very ugly, harsh criticism of everything and everyone in her family and in that church. He described it as being venomous. He said, he thought to himself, how could this be? And he asked her, "How long have you been a part of this congregation?" And she sort of stood up and said, "I've been here for over 30 years back in this era, and I never miss a Sunday. I'm always here." And she was very proud of it. He wanted to say to her that he was smart. I said, "Lady, haven't you been listening to all those great preachers and teachers who have preached and taught about love and kindness and grace and forgiveness? How could you go to church like Riverside for over 30 years and miss the point? How could you participate in this great church for so long and still be so hateful? How could you study the life and teachings of Jesus Christ for so many years and still be so critical and so vicious? Then he answered his own question. It's because all those lessons have fallen on deaf ears. In contrast, we spoke about a small parish that he had the opportunity to serve a number of years afterwards. This was a small little country church, like our little small country church. And there, a lovely lady in that congregation passed away. And he did what pastors normally do. He went to visit with the family to prepare for the funeral. As he sat in the den of their home, he listened to her three sons. They began to reminisce about their mother. They recalled her best qualities. They mentioned her sense of humor, her kindness, her patience, her creativity, her love for her family, and her love for her church. But something very interesting happened. Unusual. The youngest son, and I'm the youngest son of my family, I can envision myself in that same position, who spoke up and said, well, I don't mean to be blunt, but it's obvious I was and then the other older son says, no. And they each gave their own reasons why they were their mom's favorite. Round and round they went, energetically debating, arguing, just as brothers can do, about who was the favorite. Finally, one of them says, that was Mom's grace. She was so loving that she made that little custom special. That was beautiful. See, she had embodied the spirit of love, which our Lord himself had given. She was able to make people feel special. She heard the lesson. She had caught the lesson. She was not spiritual. The spirit of Christ-like love is an absolute necessity. Way back in the 19th century, where sailing ships were still very much present. There was a shipwreck off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. A crowd of fishermen and their families in the nearby village gathered to watch that ship that was being smashed on the rocks. A lifeboat went out. Again, I said the 19th century. This was before you had power force. They gathered, rowing, going through the waves, through the storm, to reach that boat. It was a terrific struggle. And finally, that lifeboat was making its way back. They could see that it was as full could be. And they got to the shore. They gathered those who were being rescued, covered them with blankets, took them to safety. And someone asked, did you get everybody? One of the sailors in that rescue boat said, no, we had to leave one. There was no room. We had to leave row one, but we promised we'd come back and get in. And I need volunteers because everybody is spent. Who will volunteer? Who will go with us so we can go rescue that one person? And people started volunteering. One young man raised his hand and stepped forward. And his mother came and wrapped her arms around and says, Jim, no. Jim, you're all I have. I lost your father to the sea. Your brother William went to be a sailor, and I've not heard anything from him. And most likely the same thing has happened. I can't stand to lose you. Jim, please don't, really don't go. Jim, you listen patiently. And he said, Mother, I must go. It's my duty. The onlookers watched as these volunteers jumped into the lifeboat and they began once again, as they had done before, to row their way through those waves, making their way slowly, inch by inch, to the foundering ship. All the time, Jim's mother was there weeping and praying. It was difficult to see what was happening out there on the little ship. But finally, someone saw the boat. It wasn't safe yet. It worked its way slowly, frail, as a frail shell in a storm-troubled sea. At last it came close enough that they could hail out. We got him! We got him! Jim rose up and said, Mom, it's William. The man that we do our duty, the call for generous use of our abilities, the plain commitment to Christ upon our lives and blessings, each and every one of us here to hear. When those lessons come our way, we can better listen carefully. We dare not miss. We must not let them fall. One of the psalms talks about hearing with us, searching to hear. In the psalm, it talks about going to the high mountains, going to the ocean front, trying to hear your voice. You're still speaking to us. However, in all the clutter, the busyness, and the noisiness of our lives, your voice seems to be you speak. I go over to let you continue to speak. Jesus calls us otherwise promise the same. May my dear soul Christian God, as the Lord sacrificed, I was young. in our sorrows, praise the Lord, and nights of peace, singing love to praise the Lord, which the Lord, I'll give you one word admonition. Take two. This week as you go for work, listen. Listen. What interesting. Listen. Catch what God is saying. Not what's over you